Welcome back to the Man United stream, everybody. Hope you're doing well. It is Friday and we've got a busy show for you today. We've got lots to talk about. We've got the takeover to talk about. We've got Ten Hag to talk about and the dressing room. We've also got this interview to talk about from Zlatan Ibrahimovic that speaks on the Glazers and everything on Manchester United and Ten Hag. So we'll discuss that and more in today's show. So before we start, please hit that like button on this video so it gets passed out to lots more people. And if you're new to the channel, please go ahead and subscribe. And I want to say a huge thank you to everybody that has been subscribing and showing the support to the channel. It's been amazing. It's been so good to see the channel grow so much so fast in such a little time. So thank you very much to everybody out there that's been supporting the channel and been subscribing. Okay, so let's kick off today's show with this interview that Zlatan Ibrahimovic gave to Piers Morgan. Yeah, that friendly chap who sports Arsenal is now at it again, stirring the pot with Manchester United, which he loves doing for some reason. If you remember, he's the same person that had that interview with Cristiano Ronaldo. It was a shocking interview, but to be fair, from that Cristiano Ronaldo interview, I think it started the ball rolling with this whole entire takeover. So that was maybe a good thing for us in hindsight. Maybe not at the time we thought, whoa, Cristiano Ronaldo is going to leave Manchester United. He's embarrassed Manchester United by going out there and giving this interview to this arch rival enemy of ours, Piers Morgan, who clearly does not like Manchester United at all and he's always out to get us. But it turned out that that interview that Cristiano Ronaldo did give put a lot of pressure on the Glazers, and that's why they ended up putting the club up for sale, or at least exploring strategic opportunities for the club. Now, coming back to Zlatan Ibrahimovic's interview with Piers Morgan, Zlatan did not take the bait that Piers Morgan kept putting out there about Ten Hag, about the club, and kept asking for him to dish the dirt on the club. Now, Zlatan Ibrahimovic did make a few comments on Ten Hag about how he came from Ajax, where he wasn't dealing with superstars, and then coming to Manchester United was a whole new world for Ten Hag. Now, that was a sideward type criticism for Ten Hag, but generally he was positive with Ten Hag and did believe that Ten Hag could go on and become a success at Manchester United. He did say that he has to gain the experience, and well, doing the job at Manchester United will be giving him that experience. Now, the comments made by Zlatan Ibrahimovic that really took most Manchester United fans by surprise in this Piers Morgan interview were those on the Glazers. He goes on to say, I think now in Manchester United, I don't know, there are some kind of demonstrations about the owners to sell it and that, but just a reminder, the owners are investing. He told that to Piers Morgan. It's not like they're not investing because they brought in many players for a high amount of money. So I think it's a little bit wrong saying that they're not doing what the fans expect them to do. Then I don't know what the real reason is behind everything. Now, Zlatan's really put his foot into this one because he clearly says he doesn't know anything about the reasons behind this, but then also says that he feels that the Glazers have been investing money in buying players. Now, this is the biggest misconception out there about the Glazers, and I'm going to try and put it right now. The Glazers have not put a single penny of their personal investment into Manchester United. What the Glazers have done is allowed Manchester United to spend some of the money that it's making on bringing in new players. That's what the Glazers have done. Now, that you could argue is an investment. Through business terms, yes, the Glazers haven't taken that money out and pocketed it, and they've allowed the club to spend that money on buying in new players. But they have always taken out dividends. They've continued taking out dividends. No other club, I think there's one or two other clubs that has a business model like this. But even then, the Glazers' business model is completely different to every club out there in this world. Business model that the Glazers use to run Manchester United as a club is unlike any other out there. They are completely in their own league when it comes to running the club like they do. No one else out there runs a football club the way the Glazers do. The Glazers have approached Manchester United as a business. They don't look at it as a club. They don't look at it as a football club. They don't care for it. The Glazers Glazers have turned Manchester United into a commercial enterprise, and that's how they run the club. They don't look at the football side of things. They don't even care about the football side of things, and that's why they've never given a crap about what's going on the pitch. All they care about is what's going on off the pitch, how much money they're making, the commercial contracts, the sponsors. That's all they care about. Now, Zlatan Ibrahimovic absolutely has no clue what's going on with the Glazers, and that shows in his comments. He's made comments off the cuff to Piers Morgan, which shows his lack of understanding about what's going on with the Glazers. Now, why Zlatan Ibrahimovic came out and said those things about the Glazers, we're not quite sure. Maybe he wanted to contradict Cristiano Ronaldo, we're not sure. But what he did say was stupid, because he didn't have any knowledge of what's going on with the Glazers. He admitted it in that interview. He says at the end, well, I don't know what the reasons are. So he doesn't know what the reasons are, but yet he feels that the Glazers have invested lots of money. Well, he's completely wrong. The Glazers have not invested a single penny of their own personal funds into Manchester United, and that is why the club is still in debt. The club is in huge debt, and that's what the Glazers brought to Manchester United. If anyone really wants to point out something, that's what they should be pointing out. If Ibrahimovic really wanted to point something out, that's what he should have pointed out. He should have pointed out that the Glazers have put on a debt on Manchester United that was never there before they arrived, and it's still there. They're still having to pay off this debt. So why would you say that someone's investing so much money? But if they were going to do that, why have they left the debt on the club? They should not have brought that much debt on the club. It prevents Manchester United to go out there and buy players every transfer window. When we have debt on the club, we can't go out and buy players, and that is what we saw in the summer transfer window. We couldn't go out and buy players because we are in debt. That's why. Why isn't that not making sense to these football players? So let's move away from Zlatan Ibrahimovic's interview with Piers Morgan. Clearly, he has no clue what's going on with the Glazers and the club, so let him be. Now, what is going on with the club and what is going on with the Glazers? We have heard reports overnight that Sheikh Yassim is not willing to increase on his initial bid of £5 billion for the total takeover of Manchester United. He's saying that that is his final and last offer, and he will walk away if the Glazers do not accept this offer. The Glazers are now contemplating accepting an offer from Sir Jim Ratcliffe for 25% of the club, valued at £1.5 billion. That actually then means that Sir Jim Ratcliffe is valuing Manchester United at a higher value than Sheikh Yassim. He's valuing it at for £6 billion, and that is what might make the difference for the Glazers. The Glazers might look at Sir Jim Ratcliffe and think that is the offer that they're going to go for, because it allows them to stay at the club, allows them to milk it for longer, and the Glazers can still control everything at the club, including commercial contracts and including what's going on the pitch, while Sir Jim Ratcliffe sits there in the corner watching what's going on, having given the Glazers an injection of £1.5 billion to do jack all with. That's the problem. Sir Jim Ratcliffe was never really a Manchester United fan, because any Manchester United fan, even half a Manchester United fan, would want the Glazers out. Sir Jim Ratcliffe has been described by some Manchester United fans as the Glazer in the UK, and I wouldn't put it past him. Sir Jim Ratcliffe is all about making money for himself and lining his own pockets. We are literally getting another version of the Glazers if we end up with Sir Jim Ratcliffe. It's simply jumping out of the kettle into the pot in this case. We think we're getting away from one evil villain and we're running straight into the arms of another evil villain in the waiting in Sir Jim Ratcliffe if this happens. And the reason why the Qatari group are not increasing on their bid of £5 billion is that they feel that this news with Sir Jim Ratcliffe is just another way for the Glazers to get the Qataris to come to the table and increase on their bid. Now, that does seem likely. The Glazers have been trying to tempt the Qatari group to come out again and again and increase on the offer. They wanted a bidding war, and it's not happened. Sheikh Yassim has avoided entering into a bidding war and will not enter into a bidding war, and that's what he's telling the Glazers. He doesn't want to end up paying extra for Manchester United. He's going to pay what the value of the club is and nothing more. Now, all fans have known for a long time that Sir Jim Ratcliffe is a spanner in the works when it came to the takeover. He was not meant to be at the table. We didn't want him at the table. He didn't have enough money to come in and buy Manchester United, and he still doesn't have enough money to come out and buy Manchester United, and that's why he's proposing this new deal where he's going to do it in installments, buy a bit of Manchester United now and then hang on, and then maybe see in another 3, 4, 5 years time if he can get enough money together to buy some more shares players from the Glazers. What that means is that the Glazers will stay at Manchester United, ruining the club even further, and that is not good. In about 5 years' time, we might be so far behind the rest of the clubs out there in Europe that there'll be little point in bringing in any new owner, and then who the hell's going to come and rescue us then? We're not going to do anything under the Glazers and Sir Jim Ratcliffe, and that partnership is just going to be an absolute shit show. Please let us know your thoughts on this news. What do you think? What do you think about this whole new Sir Jim Ratcliffe offer of 25%? How the hell do we get him away from Manchester United, and how do we stop this happening again? It's like history repeating itself. When the Glazers first bought Manchester United, fans were not happy. We did not want them here, but we could not stop it from happening. And now it seems like it's happening in slow motion all over again. We can see it happening. We can see Sir Jim Ratcliffe getting in there now, making these bids and slowly getting his way into the Glazers and slowly getting his way into Manchester United, and we can't stop it. What do? We are looking over at Sheikh Yassim, hoping that he finally comes to the table and makes a bid that blows everyone out of the water and rescues Manchester United, but that looks ever unlikely, given that he does not want to enter into a bidding war and feels that the Glazers are just playing games with this entire process and takeover and sale of Manchester United, and are just wanting to milk it even further and get more money from the parties. But clearly Sheikh Yassim is not prepared to do that, and Sir Jim Ratcliffe is prepared to do that and keeps on going back to the table, grovelling and asking them to accept his offer. And if the Glazers do end up selling to Sir Jim Ratcliffe, I can see a lot of fans being unhappy with this situation and causing chaos and rioting outside Old Trafford. This is not going to go down well. The Glazers having their cake and eating it while staying at Manchester United, while still sitting in that boardroom, while still calling the shots and having that cash injection of £1.5 billion, while Sir Jim Ratcliffe really does not care about the club and isn't really a fan of the club, because if he was, like we said, he would not be entertaining the Glazers. Call me crazy, but why hasn't Sir Jim Ratcliffe and Sheikh Yassim picked up the phone to each other and said, we hear you want to buy Manchester United, let's go in it together, we'll go and blow the Glazers out, we're fans of Manchester United, we can do better, let's join forces, let's go and take over the club and let's make it something beautiful. Why hasn't that happened? I really would have liked something like that to happen. It would have blown the Glazers out of Manchester United. It would have been the best thing ever, and that's still something that I would wish for it to happen. We get the best of both worlds. We get Sir Jim Ratcliffe, who claims to be someone who's a huge Manchester United fan, born and bred in Manchester, and then we get the element of the investment coming from Sheikh Yassim, who's also a huge Manchester United fan. But clearly that is just in a dream world, it's not in reality. So look, let me know your thoughts, what you think of that whole idea. Would it have been something fantastic? Would it have been a fantasy world that we'd been living in? But let us know your thoughts anyway, what you think of the whole situation. Drop that like button on the video as well. If you're new to the channel, please go ahead and subscribe. So let's move on now from this takeover. I'll bring you further news on the takeover as and when it comes, but as things stand, it looks like Sir Jim Ratcliffe is in the driving seat and heading towards the finish line, and the Glazers might just allow him to cross that finish line. And Sheikh Yassim seems to have stopped running. He seems to be watching carefully and seeing what's going to happen, but we keep on hearing this from reputable people, reputable sources, that we should never ever rule out the Qataris. This is the way they do business. This is the way they do takeovers. They leave it to the very last moment and then they come in there with a bid that's absolutely humongous and they buy whatever they need to buy, and that is the way they do it, and that is probably the way they're going to do it with Manchester United. I'm still very confident that the Qatari group, Sheikh Yassim, will be the new owners of Manchester United. So let's wait and see. Hit that like button if you agree with me. Okay, so let's move away from things off the pitch and onto the pitch and what's going on with Manchester United and what's going on behind the scenes with Erik Ten Hag and his players. We are hearing reports that Ten Hag is losing some of the players in the dressing room, which is not a surprise. We already probably guess which players are not happy with Ten Hag. It's those players that he's dropped and those players that he's disciplining and making sure that they're pulling their fingers out. The players that he's playing clearly are happy with him and want to be working for the manager. This is probably why Ten Hag Hag wanted those players out of Manchester United. We know the usual suspects, the usual players that are not happy with Ten Hag and now releasing to the newspapers that it's a toxic environment and a toxic dressing room. Look, there's no such thing as a toxic dressing room. There's players always that are happy playing for the club, and there's those players who are not happy at being at the club, not happy with not being picked. It's impossible to have a dressing room full of 100% happy players. There are going to be players that are not going to be happy, and the reason why they're not going to be happy is because they are not being picked by the manager. Of course they're going to be unhappy. So there will be always in every club players, a select few players who will not be happy with the environment, will not be happy with the manager, and will not be happy that they're not being picked. And that's no different in Manchester United. There are players, big name players like Harry Maguire, like Rashford now, and like Sancho and others that are probably not happy with the way the manager is playing the team and not picking them. That is obvious. So calling it a toxic environment, a toxic dressing room is probably a bit unfair. I don't think it's at that stage where players are turning against Ten Hag, but there will always be players who are unhappy with the way the manager is playing and the way they're being asked to play. Simple as. Ten Hag has to do a job. He has to make some players unhappy. He has to make some fans unhappy by not picking certain players. If he starts listening to the press and listening to others around him on what he should be doing and what his job is, then he's going to fail. Ultimately, he will fail at the job because he's not doing what he's meant to be doing as a manager. He has to make them decisions. He has to make them calls. He's seen the players train every day. He knows who's good for the team and who's not. He knows which play style suits which player. We cannot dictate from the outside in what should be going on. The press, the fans, the board should not have anything to do with how the team is running. It should be entirely down to the manager, and whether he picks the players or not should not be our concern. So these players that are still niggling in there in that dressing room, complaining about it being toxic, should be kicked out, and that's what Ten Hag has been trying to do. He's been trying to get rid of these players in the summer transfer window, but unfortunately it's not happened for whatever reason. Now, if you've not already watched this, I do recommend highly to go and watch this. It's the David Beckham Netflix documentary that's recently come out, and I was watching it last night and it was very, very interesting, and it brought me back to what we're talking about right now with Ten Hag and the dressing room. Sir Alex Ferguson, one of the best managers in the history of football, even had moments where he would not be happy with players, and players were grumpy and not happy in that dressing room with Sir Alex Ferguson. That's what happens, and that is what's happening right now with Ten Hag. So to claim that the whole entire dressing room is toxic and it's against Ten Hag is not true. It is simply not true, and it's just been made up by a few select few players and the press to cause more problems at Manchester United. We need to back our manager, and we need to back the 11 players that are playing on that pitch every weekend, and we need to support them and get them on winning ways. Without the support of fans, the players nor the manager will be successful. They need our support, and they need us to be there through this time, through this dark time, through this time where we're not doing well. This is the time they need us, and we need to come to the forefront and really support the team, and we need to send a clear message to the players that are sat in that dressing room leaking this news and trying to cause trouble at Manchester United, that we will not accept this kind of behaviour and we want them out of the club. If they're not happy to be there and they want to release information to the press, well, they do not belong in that dressing room and they need to be out of Manchester United and go and play for some other club. So that is it for today's show. Make sure you hit the like button on this video. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. We have got a preview show tomorrow coming up for the match against Brentford. You were watching the Man United stream, a channel by the fans for the fans.